Okay, so we're up to a new tshuva today. Okay, so the shaila is, Ani nosei al chutz la'aretz avor giviyat ksafim l'mosad mesuyam. So I'm going to chutz la'aretz. This is a person. Oh, sorry. I'm going to chutz la'aretz to collect money for to do fundraising for a particular charitable organization. Ha'im mutar li lekabel achuzim o maskoret kavua afilu shezeba al cheshbon kaspi hatzdaka shegaviti. Is it permissible for me to take a percentage or a fixed salary based on my work, even though that's going to cut into the net for the charitable institution? Now, of course, it seems to be a fairly obvious answer that if the charity is hiring me, they want me to travel to Chutz La'aretz and go from town to town to collect tzedakah, I should be compensated for that. But this person is a very erlich yid, and he wants to know, the fact that I'm not going to be bringing back the full amount, and I'm going to be pocketing some of that, is that permissible? Mahu gova ha'achuzim shemuter li lekabel. And if the answer is yes, then what percentage is permissible for me to take? And this is, like we pointed out, this is a serious problem in some of these drivers that that take around the guys from Israel, is that these drivers take a third of whatever these guys collect, and that's not cool. Okay, so bishut maharsham nishal imuter latet lishluchei hakihilot sheosvim tzedakah. He says in the maharsham, he deals with this question: is it permissible to give to the mishulachim who gathered tzedakah kitosefet lemaskurtam hakavua? Could they get that? In other words, in his situation, the charity was offering a base salary plus a percentage, which is like, base plus commission, which is normal in a lot of industries, right? Achuzim mimasha osvim kedei lezarez otam le'esov kama sheyoter. They use that as an incentive to try to get the mishulachim to collect more. Because of hamaharsham sham lahatir, keven shahashlichim heim ba'atzmam aniyim, umutar l'shanot kaspei tzedakah me'ani la'ani. So the Maharsham offers a very viable, logical svara, a logical line of thinking. And he says that it would be permitted for a meshulach to take a percentage because the meshulach himself qualifies as an ani. Because usually the people that they ask to go out collecting are poor people themselves. Yeah, and you're always allowed to change when you're collecting tzedakah. You're allowed to change from one poor person to another. So it makes no difference if you're collecting for a yeshiva or you're collecting for a particular poor person. You're allowed to make that change and adjustment. But that seems to be somewhat difficult because, so does that mean that there's a carte blanche and there's no limitation? I mean, what if a guy says, I'm collecting for, let's say, the Panovich Yeshiva, and a person wants to give to the Panovich Yeshiva because it's a very prestigious place. He would not give the same amount if he knew that it was going to that particular individual who says he's collecting for the Panovich Yeshiva. I mean, so what does that mean? I can collect 99% for myself and 1% for the Panovich Yeshiva? There's got to be some limitation.
I think consistent from what we said last week about these three funds and being specific about which fund, and
well, that's where
the shul has to say which it's going to and stick to that.
Yeah,
you can't intermingle the funds.
Generally speaking, you're not supposed to intermingle the funds, right? Because you're supposed to take a person's pledge at face value. But we did see that he said at the end of the tshuva that there are many poskim who hold that you are allowed to switch funds from one poor charity to another. So,
Guess that's why I left early.
okay, all right. So,
Can you consider this expense like expenses for the Shiva? You know, the salary and the commissions for the driver, it could be like expenses, the operational.
right,
expenses.
right, but that's the thing, is that there has to be some limitation to this.
And reasonable.
Yeah,
No.
yeah.
So, umashma midvarav shim hashaliach hazeh eino ani, אפשר להתיר לו לקחת אחוזים על עבודתו. It seems like that if the shaliach is not an ani, then it would not be permitted, based on the Maharsham's logic, for him to take a percentage. Let's say the guy's retired. He made his money in one, in a private industry, and he lives in Israel, or he lives somewhere else. And the charity asks him, "Would you be willing to act as our representative to do fundraising for us?" And he says, "Sure. What is it? What are you going to pay me?" "Well, we can't pay you anything because you're not an ani, because technically you have a pension fund that can support you." He says, "Yeah, but I want to be able to use my time to make extra money." So, according to the Maharsham, that he would not be able to argue for that. כי נותני הצדקה אינם מודעים לכך שאחוז ניכר מתרומתם נועד בשביל השליח ושאר הוצאות הגבייה. He says the reason is that if you're not an ani, you can't take a percentage, is because the donors are not informed that a significant percentage of their donation is going to the collector himself and the expenses for the collection.
He can get paid a salary though, can't he? It's not a percentage?
Well, we're still at the preliminary stage. We haven't distinguished yet between the two. And it could be that if they were told that for every dollar they give, 25 cents on that dollar, or whatever the amount is, that is going to this person, then perhaps they would not agree to make that donation. So it's only based on the fact that this person is poor, and according to many poskim, we're allowed to change from one tzedakah to another, that he's allowed to take anything. However, with that said, ulam yesh omrim mishem hachazon ish shim rov hakesef magia litzedakah dahainu 51% yesh lahakel bazeh. However, there are some who cite the Chazon Ish, and we have to see if the Chazon Ish actually said this, that if the majority of the money is going to the charity in question, meaning 51% or more, then you can be lenient. Now, what's the footnote? So first of all, he quotes V'chein Kosav b'Sefer Tzedakah u'Mishpat, which is written by Rav Bloy, the Pischei Choshen. Shekein Shama b'Shem Gedolim she'en legabai litol scharo rak pachos mechetzi. That he heard from a number of Gedolim that you cannot take more than 49%. In other words, you've got to take less than half. And he then quotes another sefer, Orchos Rabbeinu Hakilos Yaakov. This is, I guess, a biography of the Stipler Gaon. Shekosaf b'shem hachazoni shahar legabe kolel chazoni shemutar lemeshulach lakachat achuzim kol zman sherov hakesef over lakolel. That it would be permitted to take for the people who are collecting for the kolel chazonish, as long as the majority of what they collect goes to the kolel, they can take up to 50%, but not 50%. Okay, so he says, "Uchemuvan shehachuzim shemekabel gabei tzedakah kolim betocham et kol haotzaot hanilvot lahachzakat hanesiyah." But when we say that you can take up to half, that's the expenses in toto. It's not after the plane ticket and the hotel stay and the food expenses, etc. it's including all of that. Kagon silumim, pirsumot, also any kind of audio-visual expenses, advertising, aluyot, bankoiyot, any bank fees, betisot, and flights, uchedom. So that would all have to be included in the less than 50% that the meshulach is allowed to skim off the top. You'd have to, so he could only take, after all of those expenses are paid for, he could take the remainder. Aval im lo yishaer lekupat tzedaka yoter me-50%, not two, I don't know what that, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. He says, netto, or maybe that means netto, but net. Let me see if that might be like one of these, Hebrew words, that is Hebrew English words.
English.
Netto means net.
Means net. Yes, thank you. Netto. But if they will not net more than 50%, ein hadavar ra'oi, then it's not going to be okay. And then the footnote just quotes other svarim that support this idea. Ubifrachim notnei hatzdaka hayodim lo hayutormim, and that's especially true because if the donors were to know that the charity is not netting a minimum of 51%, they would never have given the donation. So you have to think about that for a second. So when you take, let's say a guy is a successful fundraiser and he brings home $100,000 from his trip and he brings it back to the yeshiva. So he would only have to give $51,000 to the yeshiva, to the kollel, whoever he's collecting for. But that doesn't mean that he pockets 49,000 because he's got a lot of expenses while he's on the road. There's also bank fees, to convert the funds into shkolim. Even when he gets back, there's advertising fees, there's telephone fees. There's a lot of expenses that's going to go into that. Especially, let's say it takes him 3 months to collect that $100,000. He's not going to be left with very much when you think about it.
There's the driver.
And then there's the driver.
Well, the driver is 30%, you have only 19 to play with, so.
Yeah, that's
Not a lot of money at the end.
Doesn't like a good job.
No.
yeah. So if you're collecting on behalf of a kollel, then it probably would not pay for you to go with the driver. It's only if you let's say you're collecting for yourself, which a lot of these guys do. So all right.
But
So
the advantage with the drivers, they know which house to stop. They have a list of houses.
right.
That's the advantage.
Yeah,
They
it's
can,
not just the transportation.
yeah, it's not
Right.
only the driving, because they can drive, but the problem is they don't know who is a good house. They know who is a big fish in the city, so.
Right.
Rabbi, if he takes, let's say, 55%, is it this or the Rabbanan or the Derisa?
Well, it's probably hard to quantify, but because we're dealing with matters of theft, it's probably deoraisa. In other words, but we're really just eyeballing it, In other words, it's hard to say definitively that, up until 50%, you're not a ganef. More than 50%, you all of a sudden become a ganef. It's a little bit hard to do that because it's based on an estimation of how people would feel. I'm sure there are some people who would be resentful, even if they heard that the yeshiva is only pocketing 55%, or 60%.
Well, we look at
Now-
charities now,
Charities are rated. Rate my charity,
Right.
right?
we're frustrated when they don't get, close to 100%, which is
Yeah.
ridiculous.
And there are a number of charities that in the Jewish world that rate very high.
Right.
When a person's contemplating making a significant charitable donation, let's say I have, Baruch Hashem, I'm at a stage of my life where maybe I can afford to give more tzedakah than I have in the past. I'm not paying tuitions anymore, and I'm in a better position. probably the first place you'd want to go is rate my charity. Let's see. Should we take a look at some charity?
If Sherlock comes and says they're collecting for yeshiva, you might just say, well, maybe I'll just give it directly to the yeshiva rather than via you. And then they'll get more.
Yeah,
Probably, what if he asked the donor for permission to take 60%? He says, look, give me 100,000, you know, and that's a big fish or whatever, and he says, but I'm gonna take a big commission, is that okay with you? He said, no.
yeah. So if the guy is okay with it, so all right, so let's see. Now let's see. This is a website called charitywatch.org.
It's a maybe an American company?
It says America's most independent, assertive charity watchdog. Okay, so let's see the United Way. United Way Worldwide.
United Way's not great.
Available.
It's an umbrella and then
Well, what would be another charity?
Like,
cancer.
American
Cancer.
I dealt with Care, Use Care Canada.
What is it?
Care Canada.
Let me look up Canadian charities.
You want a direct charity rather than one of these umbrellas.
Charity Intelligence Canada.
Wow.
So what would be what?
Ten-
well, ALS.
Top
or
10
like a
impact
sickness
charities. I don't know what the impact is.
Top 100 rated charities. Let's take a look.
Oh, Big Brothers.
So they have animal welfare, they have education, they have environment,
Doesn't
they have
say
food
how
banks,
why they're.
they have
rated.
health, homeless shelters,
Are these Canadian?
indigenous,
This was-
at-risk and youth social services, women, veterans, social services, international aid. Let's see, that's probably an important one. Mennonite Central Committee, Canada. Let's look at the Mennonite Central Committee, Canada. And their rating is, they get an A, cents to the cause, 78
Well, there we
cents
go.
Wow.
on the
Okay.
dollar goes to the cause.
Right, okay.
So they get a high rating. Okay. Here, let's see.
These
let's-
are all the
Look
high
at it,
rated
it
ones.
works.
Let's look at
No Jewish ones?
let's look at United. What is it?
No, Jewish.
UJA.
Yeah, United Jewish what?
Appeal.
Appeal.
It should be applicable.
Okay, Jewish Foundation of Greater Canada, United Israel Appeal of Canada, United Jewish Appeal of Greater Toronto. All right, let's see.
Lots of stars.
Let's see how the,
85.
85.
Wow.
so why do they only get a B?
Rabbi, can I get more insight on that?
Grade based on the charity's public reporting of the work it does and the results it achieves. So the grade is not purely based on percentage they take. It's also based on how transparent they are as far as what they do with the money.
Yeah.
So,
Rabbi, I'm sorry, I had a little more information about this.
okay,
Somebody I know is gonna be the CEO of UJA, and he's a pretty smart guy. And I asked him, congratulations, whatever.
he used to be the CEO?
No, he's gonna be one.
Oh, he's going to be.
So one of the things he's gonna do is that actually how much dollars given actually goes right to see where it's supposed to go. And he doesn't have a number. So he's gonna find what that number is.
Uh-huh.
So I'm not sure how accurate this is, because he doesn't know, or they can't tell him what it is. And so how could they find out? Also, in a situation when I was the treasurer of a large national bank, we used to send a lot of money overseas
Mhm.
to us because we're the largest professional dealer. And when we dealt with Care Canada, I'm not sure they're still around. And I was with LCs and stuff, so I was responsible for the credit. So I had to go through the financials, and it was sick how much money that actually went overseas. It was like less than 30%. And it was awful. And so basically just they made it public actually. That's how bad it was.
Wow. Okay, so they didn't find Beth Avraham Yosef. So we didn't find the charity you were looking for. We have reports on over 800 charities, but apparently not the one you asked for. So, yeah,
Try H.
what is it?
H.
They should.
They don't have it.
But
So-
on NCSY Canada,
So there's probably,
NCSY should be there.
no. So apparently this is not a very large database. We have to
Not
go.
that smart.
what is it,
Yeah.
only, so it's limited.
Is that the only site that does this?
No, I believe there are other sites that do this as well.
It's this, top 10 worst,
You don't want to put your name there.
1 or 2% goes there. 1%.
Here's one called Charity Navigator. Search for charities. All right, let's look for NCSY.
Or maybe just give an explanation.
No results found. So this is so let's see. There's got to be other charity intelligence. All right, anyway.
Maybe in your search you have to put Jewish.
Okay.
I'm really doing right, yeah.
Rate my Jewish charity.
Yeah.
The power of the-
No,
Well, here the IFCJ, which is I'm on their board, they have a 95.
wow.
Very impressive.
Yeah.
Oh, it's all volunteer, man.
Well,
It's recent, isn't it?
hold on a second. It doesn't say how much. It doesn't say. Well, anyway,
On the side there, they said that accountability and
You know what? Church
Best highly rated
Salvation-
charities.
Salvation Army.
Yeah, that would be the,
that's the way I was doing. Big advertising budget too.
100%.
Say the Navy SEAL Foundation, 100% donation.
Yeah. Yeah, they get
I
100%.
guess it's all
right.
volunteers who work there and nobody, there's
Yeah.
no overhead.
Try Black Lives Matter. See what they do.
20%.
5%.
It's
Because it's the lives of the, who take skim off the top.
All right. Anyway, let us go back to our learning. But that's interesting. There's different ways of rating it, I guess. Okay. Now, v'chol shekenim osfin kesef l'tzorach chatan yatom, o cholesh etzorach kesef l'refuato. Now, let's think about it, the following cases. A guy's collecting for a chatan to make a wedding for him because he's an orphan. Or he's collecting for a specific individual who needs to fly overseas in order to get treatment for an illness. Shelo mikubal lakachat al zeh shum sachar, v'rak lifol l'shem shamayim shelo al menat lekabel pras. In that situation, it would be completely inappropriate for the mishulach to take any percentage. Because there, the objective is to help that particular person who's the object of the cause, So if that would be really wrong, it's one thing to have the charity pay for the flight. Maybe you can rationalize that, but to have the meshulach take a cut, that would not be right. That would not be right to take a percentage. In other words, if it's for an organization, that's one thing, because people understand that the meshulach takes a percentage. But to take a percentage on us for a specific individual's charity undertaking, that you would not be allowed to do. And that's the whole tshuva. He doesn't have any more to say on this topic. Okay. Next. The next, so it might be worth researching this a little bit further, but there's not a lot to go on this. Like he doesn't, even in the Makor Baruch, he doesn't quote a lot of sources here. Okay, let's go on to the next tshuva.
So at the end of the day, for us, is anything, questions we should be asking or anything, in that sort of way, really?
Well, it depends what level of donation you want to make. If you want to make a donation, let's say 4 or 5 figures, then you should be asking these questions. If a person says, I'd like you to make a sizable donation to Magen David Adom, right? Yeah, let's do a search on Magen David Adom. Actually, let me go back to Rate My Charity.
You always have the option, I suppose, to put directly to the charity. And that reduces some of the overhead.
You do, for sure. Okay, so Charity Intelligence Canada. So no, they don't have it. Let's see, Charity Navigator. This one was Charity Intelligence. This one is Charity Navigator. Search for charity. Okay, American Friends of Magen David Adom.
What is that percentage?
They get a 98%.
Sort by relevance.
They're a 4-star
Is that what that
charity.
98% means?
So 98% doesn't mean that 98 cents on the dollar goes to them.
It's just a rating.
It's just a rating based on a number of different
So that could be
issues.
part of the equation, right?
Yeah, oh, it's clear.
So it's accountability and finance. They get a 98. Material tax forms, disclosures and policies, website disclosures. So financial metrics is, I guess, the liabilities to assets ratio. Liabilities is determined by total liabilities divided by total assets. This ratio is an indicator of an organization's solvency and or long-term sustainability. Program expense divided by total expenses. The percent of its total expenses a charity spends on the programs and services it exists to deliver. So this is what we want to look at, the program expenses. So it's like 84.5% goes to their programs. That's excellent. That's American Friends of Magen David Adom. So let's see. International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. If we're going to look at that, they get a 95%.
What's that donation?
Okay. Financial metrics, liabilities, program expenses, they get a 72.56%, which still isn't bad. It's not as good.
Yeah. That 95% was a little deceiving.
Right.
Yeah, but how accurate are these numbers? Then where are these getting numbers from?
Or are they public numbers?
I guess they have to report them to the IRS, don't they?
Not this stuff, we don't.
No?
I'm not familiar with the IRS in Canada, I don't, but they're not responsible for reporting that.
Where are they getting their information?
It's gotta come from the company. But again, when we did it, we audited it. So we knew exactly what the numbers are, and it was disgusting. So I'm sure these are not audit numbers for sure, so I'm a little reluctant to make something.
United Jewish Appeal. They only get an 86.
They show a percentage or it's simple. I tell my guy.
What about from financial?
accountability in finance, website disclosure, financial metrics, liabilities to assets ratio. 0, because I guess it hasn't been reported.
That's probably he's gonna. Put into.
Yeah, right. Okay, we'll have to hold it here for today. Okay. Have a good day, everybody. A Freilich and Hanukkah. So Adam is not going to continue.
Adam,
Minsky.
so,
CEO.
Adam Minsky is the current
Today.
UJA.
yeah, I guess, this guy has been hired,
Oh, he's just been
yeah,
hired.
Sean Warner, he hasn't started yet,
Sean
Warner,
Werner.
South African
Uh-huh. Religious or not? That
position.
traditional. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure who's replaced